Hey there. So today I want to talk to you about what makes you uniquely you. People say they're an Aries and they don't act anything like an Aries, or I'm a Capricorn. I don't feel like a Capricorn, right? How can it be that we aren't our star sign? Well, firstly, our star sign is a misnomer. There are a lot of planetary influences that impact us. And there's something called Parks therapy in psychology. And it's basically saying, hey, everyone is invited to the boardroom. Everyone is invited to this table. Everyone has a voice. There are no bad parts. Let's see what you're here to share, right? And why are you here? And we have the same thing inside of us. We each have 10 or so key planetary influences that are shaping our lives. There's a lot more to astrology than that. But when I'm working with a client, whether I'm reading your blueprint, where I'm looking at astrology and human design and jinkies, or if I'm just doing a purely astrological reading, I start with three primary energetic influences that really make them who they are. And those are the sun, the moon, and the rising. Now, so have you ever heard someone say they don't act like a Capricorn? This is why. So there are lots of things that could be happening there. It could be that the planet is right on a cusp of two different signs and you're getting a blend of the energies. It could be that another planet is sitting right on top of it or right next to it, and that's confusing or changing the energy that you experience. Or it could be that there's some aspects, some connections. So those people at the boardroom table, some of them like each other and that amplifies, and some of them don't get along so well and that can diminish. So there's a lot to it. But as the very basic recipe, we just want to look at what these primary three influences are. And I actually created this chart this morning for myself because I was trying to get my head around some dynamics between my husband. And I thought, you know what, this will be a really simple way to explain it to him as well. Because at times when we get into challenge in our conversation, it is because he is saying something that makes me feel emotional. It makes me go inwards. It makes me protective. And when I don't then meet him with what he's hoping for from me, he can get more reactive and aggressive in his response to me. And this is just in dialogue, right? It's just like an energy. And then if there's not resolution, that can then make me aggressive, right? Or maybe I've just had not a very good day and I'm feeling a little bit of out of alignment. And so therefore my shadow sides of myself are more prominent. Okay. So I put the shadow stuff in red to make it easier to pick out. So for instance, let's just walk through these energies really quickly. So we had our sun in our ego. I'm going to write it there, ego, right? It is our mental, is our consciousness, is our personality, is what everyone can see, right? We wake up in the morning and we just are the way we are, right? That's our inherent personality. And some of us have a really strong personality and some of it's a little bit more subdued, again, because of those other dynamics that can happen in your chart. But everyone has a personality, okay? And everyone has emotions. Now, our emotions are determined by where our moon is in our chart. These are emotions. The emotions are our feelings, our inner world, right? And then everyone has a rising. So the rising is also known as the AC on the chart. It's at the start of the first house and is also our soul. It's how people meet us in life, okay? And so when we're children, we're actually much closer to our soul. So sometimes you might have a baby who was born, like I have one, who was born, and I remember people stopping me on the street and saying, oh, he looks like he has the weight of the world on his shoulders. Now that I can look at his chart and see what energy is there sitting at his rising, those kind of conversations make a lot of sense. Whereas as we get older and our prefrontal cortex kicks on, and we become aware that we're different, that we're not connected to our mother, that we are observing what's happening. The teacher is appraising that person. I get praise when I'm athletic, whatever it might be, right? Then our personality, our ego kicks on more strongly and we shift. But all three of these energies really make us how we most engaged with the world. Okay, there are other influences in the chart. We'll talk about them another time. But as a starting point for every single reading I do, I look at these primary influences. What's happening with their sun, what's happening for their moon, and what's happening for their rising. And so I look at this and I'd say, okay, for me, I'm Virgo and I'm Cancer and I am Aries. And so the way that reads is I am a Virgo sun, a Cancer moon, and an Aries rising. Okay. My Virgo personality makes me organized and structured and grounded and practical. It also makes me a perfectionist. It makes me critical. It makes me very hard on myself, like I'm never good enough, right? My emotions, my inner world, they're the nurturer, they're the healer, they're the take care of others. It's the mother energy. And so it makes me emotional. I have strong intuition. I'm quite protective and nurturing. The shadow side of that is I can be quite irritable and quite crabby. I can be quite moody. And then we have our rising, our soul. Okay. And so for my soul, this is how people meet me, how people experience me. So if you met me at a party or you met me out and about, you would see me as my Aries self before seeing the Virgo. You'll only see the Virgo when I then start, if I corral everyone, okay, we're going to create these groups. I'm going to be the leader. I'm going to position myself. I've got the ideas. Now I'm going to systemize. I'm going to organize. I'm going to structure, right? That's my personality coming in. But you would find me to be quite confident and assertive, right? And you also might find me a bit fiery and a little bit feisty or a little bit aggressive, right? That's the shadow side of my Aries rising. All of these are true for me. And it's like you take a blender, you dump them in, and there's Anne-Marie, right? And if you push me up against the wall, I'm going to cry because my emotional self is going to be wounded. If you push me too hard, I am going to retreat. I want to go inwards. I need space. I don't want to be confrontational with my inner emotions. I really need time to step away and process. My husband, on the other hand, he's a very different mix of energies. He's a Gemini. Geminis are curious. They're the communicator. I remember on our first date, he just talked and talked. And it wasn't that he was talking about himself. He was asking questions. I felt like he was interviewing me. He was very curious, very intellectually stimulated, right? And so that shadow side of Gemini can be either a bit scattered or a bit of an overthinker, or they can struggle to commit, right? And then his moon is actually Aries. The moon doesn't love being in Aries because Aries is the war sign. It's the, I'm going to get things done. You put your feelings in there, it can make you overly reactive or aggressive with your emotions. And I didn't know my husband until about 6-7 years ago, but he says like when he was younger, when he had less control of his emotions, he was short-tempered. He was very reactionary. He would get himself into trouble. He played sport very at a high level, and I can imagine that brought up some emotions, and I can just imagine that a fiery and aggressive young man, right, emotional, boasting, and reactive, and selfish and aggressive, right, that can come out. But if we look at his rising, his soul, he is a Scorpio rising, which makes him deep and intense and intuitive. He's emotionally courageous. The shadow side of our Scorpios, and they can be quite secretive. They can be quite controlling. I said, of emotionally intense and in destructive ways, right? So what makes you, you, right? You are so much more than just your star sign. So I hope that's piqued your interest. I am running a workshop. Actually, I'm running a series of workshops called Permission to Be Me, and we're looking at your inherent design. All the details are in the link below. I would love to have you join me, either for the 4-part series or just for this individual one, to learn more about your sun, your moon, and your rising. What makes you, you. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you soon.